everybody, it's Allison. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at the new Waffle Flower release called Sweet Gathering, and we're going to be looking at ink blending white die cuts. Now, obviously I do a lot of die cutting, and usually I love the clean look of just colored cardstock, but every once in a while I love ink blending and getting just a bunch of color variation. So here is the release, and as always there's a bunch of dies and some stamps and stencils, and this is very autumn themed. There's some fun Thanksgiving kind of tablescape type stuff. There's pumpkins, pumpkin pie, all kinds of fun stuff. All right, here is the free die with purchase for this release. This is the Print Happy die, and there's a shadow layer. And I just wanted to show you how big that is compared to an A2 panel. And I'll have information on my blog on how this free die with purchase works. So let's get started on the card for today. I'm starting with the Tiny Square Texture die. This came out in the Quilted Hugs release several months ago. Maybe it was May. I still love this, and this is the Tiny Square stencil set that goes with it. There were several stencils that go with this die, but this was my favorite. So I'm going to be using some oxides today to do my stenciling. I'm going to start with frayed burlap, and I'm going to go quick with the stenciling. I've already shown this stencil in a previous video for that release in May. I will link to that release or that video at the end of this one, but it's pretty simple stenciling, and these three stencils are so easy to line up. So again, that was frayed burlap, and I'm putting the second stencil on, and I'm going to be using Uncharted Mariner for this one. This is a really cool kind of a teal blue color. So just finishing that up. And I thought it would be fun to use this stencil set for this kind of autumn themed thank you card. It kind of gives that, quilted look, but just, I don't know, kind of that cozy vibe. All right, so this is the last color, and this is Walnut Stain. All right, so I love how it looks, but I don't love the white panel. It's just really stark, that white that's left over. So I'm just taking the same brush that I had just used with the Walnut Stain, and I'm just going over the entire panel. And not only is that going to color the white part, but it's going to color the blue part as well. So the blue has been kind of warmed up a little bit. All right, so here is the overlapping vertical thanks die on the left. That's what we'll be using on this card. And the overlapping vertical happy is on the right. So these are both part of this new release. And I'm just going to show you this card that I have started. This is kind of a little sneak peek at a video that I'll be sharing soon. I have not finished this card yet. This is as far as I've gotten, but it's a fun shaker card. And back to this card, this is again the overlapping vertical thanks, and I've cut it from two colors, a dark kind of teal color and a brown. And I decided the blue cardstock was just too stark, too clean. So I'm just taking my shader 2+ brush and using that Walnut Stain. This time I'm using Distress ink, not the Oxide. And we're going to look at what else I'll be using on this card. These are the cozy icons. This is a die set from this release. So there's greenery, there's some little branches, there's some cute little acorns and a mushroom, and there's this cute little snail with an envelope on top and a little separate envelope, a couple butterflies, and then this really cute coffee cup. And there's a die to make a plain little label. The label that I have on there has a little pumpkin. So I am right now inking up the greenery from that set that I just showed you. And I'm using the walnut stain. Again, I have switched now to my regular Distress inks. And this is the Uncharted Mariner. So I'm keeping with the same colors and not going for a perfect look on any of these. That's why I love ink blending die cuts, because you're really just going for, you know, just a fun color variation. So I'm adding blue here onto these leaves. And I decided I wanted to bring a little bit more color in here. So I'm actually coming in with this fired brick. I really didn't know what this was going to do to this, but I decided to give it a try. You could always start over. So it's pretty red, pretty bright. Definitely gives those fall vibes though. So I did decide it was just too red. So I am going to come in with some orange after this, some spiced marmalade. And I'm just going to go over that red part, and it's going to kind of calm it down a little bit. But it's still more vibrant than it was when it was just brown and blue. So just kind of playing around. You can see the acorns on the panel. I didn't end up using the acorns. All right, these are the Grateful Heart sentiments. This is new, part of this release, and I'm going to go with Your Kindness Means So Much. And as usual, I got my acetate here. And when I use my acetate, I like using my black pigment ink to stamp on the acetate. I find that regular ink kind of bubbles up on the acetate. So I've already cut out the die that matches this stamp. And I'm just placing it under the acetate. The acetate is gripping to the grip mat, so it's not moving. And I'm lining up the die with the stamping on the acetate. So now I can wipe that off. And I'm coming in with 2 inks. Well, first I'm going to stamp it with black. I usually stamp it with black and kind of stash that away in my stash, so I have that stamp for later for another card. But for this card, I have 2 colors here of PinkFresh ink because I didn't know which one I would want more. I'm keeping this die in place, and now I'm taking the negative piece, and I'm going to carefully place that around this die. And now I can take that out. I've cut another die out of white paper, and I can just stick that into the negative space. And I know that my stamp is still going to stamp in the right place. So I have this brown ink. I think this was Dough, again from PinkFresh Studio. And again, I probably stamped like 3 or 4 different colors here. So there's the brown. Now, when I put it on the panel, again, that white is too stark for me. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did on my stenciled panel. And I'm just going to run the walnut stain ink over this die cut. Just a little bit, not a lot. And that's just going to cut down on the starkness of that white, and then it will just look better on the panel. So there's how that looks. Now, like I said, I did stamp this in 2 other colors. So here is a blue color that I stamped in, and didn't end up using that one either. All right, these are the Fringe Frames. This is the largest one in the set, and here are the other ones that come in the set. And I wanted to compare it to the Deckled Frames die set. If you've watched my videos, you know that I love this Deckled Frame set. Now here's the Fringe Frame die, and I'm just going to compare it to the Deckled. See how the Deckled is just a little bit smoother. The Fringe definitely has more, well, fringe on the side. Now the other difference is there's more of a border on an A2 panel with the Fringe die, and here's Here's the deckled frame. Now there are only 2 rectangle frames in the deckled frame set. There's this big one and then there's a slightly smaller one. So the fringe frames, obviously you can see there's 4 frames, I think. Now it also comes with these cute little, I'm going to call them tassels. So I think that's just kind of unique. And I think if you took this smaller one and put tassels on the corners and maybe put like a sentiment in there, I think that could be a cute focal point on a card. So I am using the largest die from this new Fringe set, and I'm going to cut out my panel. And I'm just going to tape it in place. I did center it so that the design was kind of as centered as I could get it. And here's what we get. And I love these kinds of dies. I've always loved the deckled frames, and now I'm glad to have more sizes with this Fringe frame set. All right, so the brown panel that I'm going to have for my card base is the same brown that I'm using for the bottom layer of that vertical thanks die. And now I'm coming in with some more of that greenery from the Cozy Icons set. And some of these I'm just kind of leaving a little bit more blue. And as usual, when I work with florals or greenery, I like to pull them apart or, just make them my own into the design that I want them to be. All right, now here's the final die. I used this darker brown ink. And also, I decided I didn't like the solid thanks, the cardstock that I used. So I did ink blend this one. I started with white paper and I ink blended it with that Uncharted Mariner. And I'm now warming it up with the walnut stain. Now, you noticed how blue it was before I added the brown, and that's how it was when I inked up the panel. When I ran the brown over the panel, it really warmed it up. So now this kind of ties in, and I like it a lot better than that solid color that I had before. I think this just goes better with the overall look of the card. And this whole card just kind of has this warm, rustic, cozy vibe, and I love that. Right now on the back, I'm using these black foam strips. These are from Waffle Flower. They have 2 different thicknesses. This is the thinner one. And I just really wanted to pop this up, especially because I'm going to be tucking the greenery in behind this, so it's going to help that it's popped up. And I did make sure to leave a little bit of space on the H where I'm going to tuck some dies, and then down near the K and the S where I'm going to tuck the other ones. And I did use my T-squared to help line that die up. And I'll use it here as well to make sure that this sentiment is lined up. All right, so now I'm just, tucking these things in, cutting them, just so I can get them, I don't know, how I want them. I've said this before, when it comes to florals and greenery and me arranging them, it takes me a while, probably longer than the average card maker. But this is my final arrangement, and I love the whole rustic vibe of this card. I love this vertical thanks. I've said this before, I think this is the third, well, now that there's the happy, the third and fourth die like this. They came out with Mary first a few months ago, and then they came out with Hugs. And so now we have thanks and happy. And I love word dies, especially when they're unique like this. And like you saw with the happy that I made, I used different colors for each letter. So again, I'll be having a video showing how I did that. But that is it for now. I appreciate you being here. I know that I've been absent lately. I am trying. I will actually be back tomorrow with a video. So I hope you'll tune in then again as well. And thanks again for being here. I appreciate your support. Take care. Bye-bye.